Objection.
Your Honor, but it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's explaining what she looked at.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. When did you earlier believe the first act of physical violence occurred?
Well, I had always believed up until recently that it had started later, that the violence started around early 2013, not early 2012.
Now, you testified earlier that the first act of physical violence by Mr. Depp related to the Winona Wino tattoo. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Okay. Does that change your testimony, realizing that this is earlier? Was this, in fact, still the first act?
Objection, leading.
Sustained. It's leading.
What was the first act?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
How do you remember the first act of violence?
Well, you never forget it. That's how I remember it. It changes your life forever. You never forget the first time someone hits you like that. I just had the date wrong.
Okay. And how is it that you think you got the date wrong?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I'm embarrassed to say I think I would have liked to have believed that the period of time in which I had to fall in love with Johnny, in which we fell in love and he was sober and he wasn't violent to me, lasted for a lot longer than it did. I think I would have liked to have believed that I wasn't hit so early in the relationship and still stayed. He was also sober for a period in 2012, which was a peaceful time for us, in which we fell in love. So I had kind of allowed myself, I guess, to forget that the beginning of that period, 2012, before he got sober, was really violent and chaotic as well. I'm embarrassed to say that.
Now, you testified that the police were called multiple times. Other than the May 21, 2016, what other occasions were there where the police were called?
They were called in December of 2011. They were called in 2012. They were called in 2013 in March by the landlord. I had sought advice from Laurel Anderson as to whether I should call the police.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Okay. When you filed the domestic violence temporary restraining order, how many acts of abuse did you allege at that time?
I gave the last couple, I believe, last two incidents, maybe three.
And why didn't you tell of all the acts of abuse at that time?
I was following advice from my counsel.
Okay. How many instances of abuse were included in the UK trial?
There were 14 acts of physical abuse and violence and 3 acts of sexual abuse. Violence.
And why were those 17 included in the UK trial?
Well, I was not a party, a direct party. I was a witness, so it was whatever their counsel, the Sun counsel, chose.
Okay. When is the first time you were called upon to provide a detailed accounting of as many times as you could recall of physical and sexual abuse by Mr. Depp?
Objection, hearsay.
That's not hearsay, Your Honor. I'm asking her when she was called upon to do so.
Well, the objection is hearsay.
Right, but it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, and it's just asking for date.
All right, overruled.
Thank you.
A few months ago, February in 2022, this year, was the first time I was asked to do so, other than cold in a deposition.
Okay. And when you were asked to provide those, what did you do to be able to prepare that accounting, that full accounting?
Well, I had the benefit of my therapist.
Objection, hearsay.
So, Your Honor, she's not saying what the therapist said. I'm just asking.
I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I looked at my therapist notes. I had the benefit of those notes, which we had received in February, as well as I reviewed calendars photos, text messages, my journals, my diaries, of which there were many. I put all of those together. It took a lot of time to be able to, adequately refresh my recollection and fill in the details over the course of the 5 years we were together.
And what did you do when you put that all together?
I kind of filled in and collected all of these various pieces of information and gave a fuller account as best I could for each incidents of violence that I had record of. I think it was called an interrogatory.
In this case?
In this case,
All right.
excuse
Did
me.
you sign that under oath?
I did.
Okay. And it was provided to counsel for Mr. Depp?
It was.
Okay. And was it a pretty lengthy document?
It was far too long.
And how is it that you didn't just remember all of those events like this?
That's not how your memory or my memory works. We were together for 5 years, almost 4.5, and it was a very violent, chaotic, at times very loving, emotional relationship. So as anyone can imagine, there was a lot going on, and unfortunately, the violence became almost normal, especially towards the end. It was just, it's hard to say that now, but the violence was almost normal. And, your brain does with trauma what it does, puts it away best you can. So I was frankly, I was shocked to see a lot of the information presented to me through my therapist notes, because she was taking them in real time.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
All right, I'll sustain her objection.
Okay, we'll move past what the therapist said in her notes. Okay. Now, there's one more. You also provided a declaration in this case early on. Do you recall that, trying to move the case to California?
Yes, there was a declaration in 2019.
All right. And did you describe some of the events of violence in that declaration?
Objection leading.
What, if anything, was said about violent acts in that declaration?
I was taking the advice of my counsel. It was to get it moved, I believe.
Okay. And was there, did you include all of them?
No.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Thank you.
No, I did not include all of the incidents of violence. That was not the point of making this declaration. We were making this declaration in an effort to move it to California, because as hard as it is to go through this sort of trial as it is, it's even harder to do so in a place that neither Johnny nor I are connected to.
Okay. Now, you testified earlier about guitars, and you said you've never played a guitar. Have you ever played a guitar player in a movie?
You could say I posed with a guitar. It turns out I am an unteachable.
Okay. I'm going to take you to the tape recordings. Why did you and Mr. Depp start taping each other?
Well, at first it was, not at first, it was meant to be a way to get to the heart of some of our communication issues in order to discover in a therapeutic fashion kind of what was some of our issues in our communication.
Okay. Now, we heard an audio tape earlier during this trial in which you said the word couch repeatedly. Can you please explain to the jury what that meant?
Yes. Couch was a word that we had been given, that we decided upon, rather.
Objection hearsay.
Just tell us what Mr. Depp said about this.
That it was a safe word. It was meant to be a safe word, like a word, like truce, where you put down the proverbial guns and you say, truce, we're not fighting anymore. Couch was supposed to be a word that you used, or that we used as a truce. I don't want to fight anymore. You win. Let's stop this. That was the mention of couch, which you heard earlier in a recording.
Now, what, if any, discussions did you have with Mr. Depp about threatening to divorce each other or threatening to leave?
Objection calls for hearsay to
I'm
the extent
asking
it
for-
calls for misheard statements.
I'm asking for discussions with Mr. Depp.
It's still her.
Just tell us what Mr. Depp said, don't tell us what you said.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what did Mr. Depp say in your discussions about the use of the term threatening to divorce or threatening to leave each other?
Objection leading.
Overrule.
Well, Johnny would always say the only way out of this was death. But in fights, in particularly heated ones, we had found, we were using divorce in the fight, in some of our heated fights. We tried not to, but that kind of deteriorated after the December incident that I got beat up pretty badly in, and after that point, it was used a lot more often.
Okay. Now, March 26, 2015, this is after the first Australia trip and after the staircase incident. I'm going to ask, Michelle, can you bring up Depp Exhibit 371A? This is a tape recording, and it's going to be at 1 minute, 1:01 to 2:29.
Could you say that times again? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's 1:01 to 2:29. And if we could, I don't know whether you had turned up that volume. I know it's hard to hear these.
Is this in evidence already?
I'm moving it into evidence, Your Honor, but these are the tape recordings between the two, which I think we had agreed.
Is there any objection to 371A?
Your Honor, if you just give me a moment to
Okay,
confirm
sure.
there's no other voices.
Plaintiffs. Yes, okay. It's not in evidence, though, so.
It's not in evidence, Your Honor, so could you please confirm that there are no other voices?
This is, I will confirm that.
Okay,
This,
all right.
and it's Depp's exhibit.
Right.
It's Mr. Depp's exhibit.
Plaintiff's 371A then, any objection?
No objection.
Okay, 371A in evidence. Thank you.
And we may need to, Sammy, if I could just, if you listen, and we may need to turn that volume up. Sometimes your control is a little bit better than what we have, Max.
I see somebody who's changing always into different versions of a person that I recognize for a brief moment, and then he slips away, and he disappears. And then I get a different version of him. I get the insecure, scared version of him that lashes out in a different medium every time. So if it's Adderall junkie Johnny, then he's abusive, and he's a bully, and he's a tyrant, and he's mean, he's reactionary, and he's incendiary, and anything I do and say is cause for violence or anger. If I speak to him honestly, bluntly from the heart, I'm yelling at him. If I argue back with him, then I'm abusive. If I don't say anything, then I am dismissive or absent or it's wrong or somewhere else. If I engage with him, I'm part of the problem. I'm yelling, I'm mean. If I don't engage with him, then I'm part of the problem. I'm the problem. I'm the problem either way. That's the guy who's
That no matter, my perception was that no matter what I did, no matter what I did to de-escalate, walk away from him, to confront him, to try to, nothing I did made a difference. Nothing I did changed his rage at me. Nothing I did changed the violence towards me. Nothing I did calmed him down. And I was constantly doing a juggling act of what kind of version of Johnny I was dealing with. There were different versions of him, and they were drastically different from one another, and even more so than them being different from one another, they didn't even sometimes remember what the other version did or said. They acted almost like independent versions of this person depending on what combination of drugs and alcohol he was on. That's what I was trying to express to him. It's just the futility of me responding and successfully, and the futility of trying to constantly negotiate with him and the substances he was on at the time.
I'm going to take you to April 15, 2015, the premiere of When I Live My Life Over Again. What, if anything, did you do for that premiere?
I believe that premiere was in New York City. It was a small independent film I shot. I went back to New York to attend the premiere.
Michelle, can you bring up Defendants Exhibit 421, please? Does this accurately depict the scene portrayed in this picture?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendants Exhibit 421.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, 421 in evidence.
May we publish to the
Publish to the
jury?
jury.
Thank you. Amber, could you please describe for the jury what this picture is?
That is a picture of me a few months. I believe this is April of 2015, so it's a few months after the March incident that happened in Australia, early March, in which Johnny held me down on the countertops and my arms were cut on the glass
And
in that attack.
And if we could draw attention to your arm there, are those scars? What are those? Please describe for the jury what those are.
Those are scars that I obtained while Johnny was strangling me and assaulting me on the countertop in Australia.
Okay. Michelle, can you bring up Defendants Exhibit 423, please? And does this accurately portray the scene shown?
Yes, that's...
Hold on a second. I'm going
Yes.
to move the admission of Defendants 423, please.
No objection.
423 in evidence.
Thank you.
Publish.
May we publish? All right, and please describe to the jury what this shows.
It is a picture of me on a red carpet. You can see my scars. Even though I have makeup on them, they're a bit harder to cover because they're rather fresh.
Okay. Now, after this, in April of 2015, you returned to Australia with Mr. Depp, did you not?
Objection leading.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Yes, we did.
Okay, and tell the jury about that trip.
Well, after Johnny was able to get clean off of the coke and the other drugs enough to get the hand surgery he needed, there commenced a period of time of sobriety for Johnny. His doctor had fired him and then came on when Johnny agreed to get clean.
Objection,
So there was this-
hearsay, non-responsive.
Don't say what, I mean, we've already had, Your Honor, we've already had the testimony from Dr. Kipper, but don't say what Dr. Kipper did. Just tell the other part. Just don't say what somebody else said. Okay?
So there was this period of sobriety after that, and Johnny was very committed to being clean and sober, and I thought we had finally done it. We finally did it. We were through it, and we were never going back, meaning he was going to be clean and sober for good this time, and we had a wonderful period of, we fell back in love, or deeper in love than we were before. It seemed things were so good. We were talking about a future again. We were talking about having kids. I mean, when Johnny wasn't using, it was so peaceful. We had we had a good time together. We went back to Australia like that, in that state, and had a few months. We even had my parents come and visit us in Australia, and we were talking about babies and about buying a farm and, looking for homes in California. And we were in a really beautiful, peaceful period. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Now, how did you stay at the same place that you did the earlier time in Australia?
We went back to a very remodeled version of that home. I mean, remodeled, very cleaned up version of that home. Same walls, same structure, but looked a bit different, as you can imagine.
How did you feel going back to that home, given what had happened in March, early March?
You know, the home isn't the problem. You know, if you're living in domestic violence, you don't just not go home. You know, you don't just not go into the kitchen just because you were slapped in that kitchen. People living in domestic violence live in their homes. That's almost, you know, the home isn't the problem. That's the normal part of your home. And for me, you know, Johnny was my home. Where we were a couple was my home. And that home was often really violent. But it wasn't the structure itself. It was Johnny. And when we went back to Australia, that home, Johnny, was in a completely different, you know, he had done a complete 180. Clean, sober, present, calm. We were peaceful. I mean, any of the gripes and the problems that he seemed to have about me went away when he was sober. And so we had a really, we managed to go back to that same house, but in a very different way. It felt very different.
June 16, 2015, the Magic Mike tour. Where did you go for that tour?
While I was in Australia, I got the call for that press tour and went to Europe for the press tour for that movie. And, you know, I was nervous because problems arise when I'm having to work, when I leave.
Objection, non-responsive.
That was still responsive.
Well, I'll sustain the objection. Next
Okay.
question.
Michelle, can you please bring up Defendants Exhibit 447? I'm going to ask you first, does this accurately portray the scene depicted?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendants Exhibit 447.
No objection.
447 in evidence. You can publish.
Thank you. And Michelle, if you could zoom in just a little bit closer. Amber, could you tell the jury about this picture?
Yes, that's me on the red carpet promoting the Magic Mike movie I was in. You can see the scars on my body, on my arms.
Okay.
You can't see everything, of course, but
Okay. And Michelle, can you bring up Defendants Exhibit 449? And Amber, does this accurately depict the scene portrayed?
yes, it does.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendants 449.
No objection.
All right, 449 in evidence.
Okay.
Publish.
And Amber, could you please describe to the jury what this portrays?
This is, you can see the scars on my arm from that attack. Also around this time, Johnny was calling me on the phone before and after, you know, while I was doing these press events, and sometimes I would be on the phone with him, kind of managing accusations about why I didn't pick up sooner, didn't text back sooner, and sometimes I actually on this tour many times had to delay getting out of the car or
Objection, non-responsive.
I'll ask that. How did Mr. Depp react to your going on this press tour?
He was very upset with me. I just remember crying on the phone with him a lot and having to hang up to go do press events.
All right, thank you. Now, I'm going to take you to the Southeast Asia train trip. That was your honeymoon trip, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and that was July 25, 2015?
Yes,
Now-
it was.
Okay. Michelle, I'm going to ask you to bring up Plaintiff's Exhibit 162. It's already into evidence. Now, Mr. McGivern testified that he took this picture in July of 2013. Would you agree with that?
Objection, misstates prior testimony.
That's exactly what he testified to.
It was
It
Malcolm.
wasn't. It wasn't.
I have the transcript.
I don't know. Go ahead and ask your
It's
question.
Mr. McConnelly.
Is that correct?
I believe Malcolm Conley took this on the on the Orient Express.
Malcolm Connolly, not Travis McGivern?
I believe it was Malcolm on that trip with us, yes.
Okay, and was it in 2013 or was it 2015?
It was in 2015,
Okay.
July.
And please describe, if you can, what transpired during this trip.
Well, the train trip itself was peaceful up until Johnny wanted to start drinking brown alcohol. He had already started drinking champagne. When I returned from the press tour, that's what he was drinking, wine and champagne. When he wrapped on Pirates 5, the plan was for us to do this honeymoon. I was walking a bit on eggshells because I know a pattern, but I was not wanting to accept that we had gone back to a pattern at all. And so we were on this train, and on the last night we were on the train, after this was taken, this photo, Johnny and I got in an argument about him wanting to be allowed, meaning him wanting me to agree to him drinking liquor and being okay with it. And an argument followed that in our sleeping car. Johnny slapped me across the face and held me up by kind of got a hold of my neck and pushed me up against the wall of the cart. It was a narrow sleeper cart, and there were two beds, one on each side. He had me up against the wall while he was standing on the floor in between the beds, and I was on the bed kind of half kneeling, half standing, trying to get his arms off my neck, and he was squeezing my neck against the railway car for what felt like a very long time. And every time he kind of would pull me away from the side of the car, he'd slam me up against the wall. And I remember looking down at him and trying to get his arms off of my neck. And I remember thinking that he could not even mean to kill me. I remember being scared that he wouldn't even mean to do it. And kind of looking down at him because I was slightly above him as he was standing on the ground, and kind of clawing at him, trying to get him to, his arms away from my neck. I remember I had at one point he ripped the top of my shirt. I don't really remember what it was, but I remember I had a breast exposed. At some point, I pull at his lapel of his shirt, and he rips the shirt off of him and wraps it around my neck. And that's how I woke up. The next morning, actually, I woke up with it still around my neck and with a giant knot in the back of my head.
Did you keep a diary at that time?
Yes, I did.
Michelle, can you bring up Defendants Exhibit 461?
Objection, hearsay.
It is a diary, Your Honor, and I will just ask her some questions about it rather than trying to admit it into evidence at this point.
All right. I'll wait for the question. Go ahead.
What, if anything, do you recall about recording what transpired on that train?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm just asking her whether she did. I'm not asking what she recorded.
All right, I'll allow it. Go ahead. Overruled.
I wrote about what happened that night the next morning.
Thank you. Now, did Mr. Depp suffer any injuries on that trip?
Not that I saw. I have a lot of pictures from that trip, and he's uninjured.
Okay, thank you. You can take that down, Michelle, thank you. Now, I'm going to keep you in July of 2015, and Michelle, I'm going to ask you to bring up Depp Exhibit 390A. It's a recording, and I'm going to be asking about from 3:30 to 4:12. I'm going to move the admission, Your Honor. It's another recording between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard. There's nobody else in
It's
there.
plaintiffs, what number was it?
It's plaintiffs, it's 390A.
Okay. Any objection to 390A?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay.
May we approach?
Okay.
Okay, quick sidebar. Let's get in a break. More testimony. Amber Heard on the stand after this. Sidebar broken up. Back to Fairfax, Virginia. Amber Heard. Still direct examination. Crosses coming up likely this afternoon.
All right. Any objection then?
No objection.
All right. 390A in evidence.
I saw you doing it earlier, whatever. It's fine, it's secretive.
What were you discussing in that call?
We were discussing whether or not it was all right to record each other without the other's permission. And Johnny said it didn't matter anymore, the requirement of that permission from me. I was trying to say, hey, we agreed.
Okay. Let's go to August 2015. Please describe your relationship with Mr. Depp in that time frame.
You said August?
August 2015.
August 2015 was a very difficult time. Following the brief honeymoon we had, Johnny's use continued, well, started again is a better way to describe it. And lo and behold, so did our disagreements, coincidentally, not coincidentally. I got an offer to do a job, which was already a problem, or problematic. I was considering working on a TV series that had James Franco in it. I was asked if I would meet with the people who are making the show.
Objection, hearsay.
It's not offered to prove the truth of the matter, sir.
Overrule.
Thank you.
And so I was considering taking that job. And there was a possibility it would require brief nudity, which I knew I would have to negotiate down. But obviously that was a problem for Johnny. Didn't want me to do that. Didn't want me to work. And frankly, I needed to. And there was another film I had coming out that I had previously shot. It's called London Fields. It was a source of a lot of fighting between us because of the sexuality in the role. It was a constant negotiation between myself and the filmmakers. They made a film, and Johnny told me that he had heard about it, was unhappy with some of what he had heard. He was unhappy with me having done a sex scene in it that he claimed I didn't tell him about. I did not actually film the scene he was speaking of. He demanded that we watch a screener of it, which is like a version of the film before it's released. We got one sent to where we were at the time, Johnny's Chateau in France. It's in a remote part of France. And once again, we're in this remote place and we're screening this film that I appeared in, and there was a scene, a sex scene in that movie that started before Johnny freaked out because it looked like me. They had used a body double. Unbeknownst to me, without my permission, they used a body double to do a sex scene. So I have an incredibly jealous man who already is upset with me for breaking the rule that I had a sex scene. On top of that, I'm telling him it wasn't me. I didn't shoot that scene. And you can imagine how upset he was. He was irate and was calling me a liar, a whore, among other things. And we had this, that combined with the fact that I had even entertained doing this job that involved James Franco was a pressure cooker. I called it a week of hell later.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. That's right.
Johnny at one point slapped me in the face in our bedroom in the chateau that we were staying in. At another moment, he punched me across the jaw. At one point, he kind of either pushed or threw. It's hard to describe to you which of those two it is because I can't tell you. I just know I went flying into this old church furniture. I later thought I had a concussion. It was the first time I thought I had sustained a concussion. And that's, I wrote about it later.
Now, did there come a time in this time frame that you found a folder on Mr. Depp's computer?
Yes.
What was it labeled?
It was on Johnny's opening page, his desktop. It said, "No fun for JD," in all caps.
And what was in that folder?
It was a collection of pictures of me from various red carpets, starting on the press tours that I had been on, where I zoomed in pictures of what he thought was, you know, like inappropriate clothing, side boob, cleavage, anytime I moved. And
Objection calls for speculation.
All right. I'll sustain as to what
Okay.
she believes it was.
Okay. What pictures were in that folder that we have seen today?
The ones I saw of the kind of rose gold dress and the red dress were both in that file.
Now, what, if anything, did Mr. Depp say to you or ask you about how you got those cuts on your arms?
Nothing.
What, if anything, has Mr. Depp ever said to you or asked you about any injuries that you've sustained over those years?
Johnny's obviously never asked me how I got any of those scars.
Did you ever witness Mr. Depp self-injuring himself?
Often. He did that often.
Please tell the jury about that. What did he do?
I first started, I can't tell you what I told my therapist, but I almost called 911 in New York in 2014, August of 2014, I believe, because I thought he had done himself an injury. He often, in fights, would cut his arms or hold a knife to his chest or draw blood superficially at first, but later, like in 2016, especially as our relationship was ending. He also put cigarettes out on himself. He'd flick them at me and once or twice tried to put one out on me, but mostly he would do it while screaming at me. He once did it right in front of me, screaming at my face as he put the cigarette out on his cheek.
Now, I'm going to take you to September 15, 2015, and Michelle, if we can bring up Depp Exhibit, that's Plaintiff's Exhibit 345A. This is another audio recording, and it's 5:54 to 7:55. I'd like to move the admission, Your
All
Honor.
right. Any objection?
No objection.
All right. 345A in evidence. Thank you.
If you can play, Michelle, please.
I was gonna pour you one.
I'm an alcoholic. You should.
I don't have any control over how much you drink. But you don't have any control over whether I tell you the truth or not. Have you changed lately? Yeah, you've changed.
Well, your truth is really interesting, too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm the first person
Give me a glass
that's
of wine,
noticed.
please, so I can go downstairs.
Okay. Yes. Your escape route. I see.
Not escaping. We'll be back in 10
Oh,
minutes.
of course. 15 minutes, just like last time.
15.
Just like last time. When I had to pull you out of the bathroom. Well, didn't have to pull you out of the bathroom, but when you passed out naked in the bathroom in there,
Did you pull me out?
you tried to.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you get inside?
It didn't get inside.
Well, how did you try to pull me
By
out?
pounding on the door, waking you up every 15 minutes, and then falling asleep next to the door so I could hear you snore in case if you vomited, I could call EMS if you ever stopped snoring.
Because you were
if
afraid I was going to die.
I thought you would choke on your own vomit, which is very likely with you.
Really?
Yes, very
But I
likely.
vomit a lot.
Yes.
What?
Yes, you do vomit a lot in your sleep, even
Really?
Oh, it's news to you? Then this is affecting you a lot more than I thought it was.
That'll be so good. I hope so.
What, you don't vomit a lot? Or you gonna tell me that? Look me in the eye, tell me you don't vomit a lot. Going through me, you don't vomit a lot? You're always with me.
As we approach the top of the hour, we need to slip in a commercial break. We will pick it up right where we left off. You won't miss a thing. This is Port TV, your front row seat to